elected president, maybe a few months into his term, he was asked the question, so now you're president, how's the country different than you expected it to be? And Kennedy said, well, when we were campaigning, we were talking about what terrible shape the United States was in. And he said, the large surprise now that we're governing is everything we said was true. So roll back to when you were campaigning, and you had a privileged view of the state of the Philippines, but not the view that you now have. What do you know now that you didn't know when you became president? How's the country doing?
Well, when we started out, during the campaigns, we knew that we were in a bad shape. When we got into office, we realized that our estimate was on the optimistic side. But the pleasant surprise is, in spite, for instance, we were supposed to govern for half of the year, 2010. We were left with roughly about 10% of the national budget to spend on the last half of the year. But the surprising thing is, look at the numbers that we were quoting earlier, be it the stock market, be it the global peso bond offer, very, very successful. But more importantly, our Department of Budget and Management has just informed us that through good governance and prudent expenditures, we have actually had a surplus in the second half, well, the second month that we have been in office. That obviously was not expected. All our focus has been on controlling the deficit and making sure that our ratings with the various credit rating agencies will not suffer more to make our borrowings even that much more expensive to cover the deficits. But again, in the past month alone, there have been so much good news. Basically, what we thought of the timetable for fixing all of our problems seems to be accelerating. And we hope to continue on that trend. And when I get back home, there's just really a mountain of good news that I'll be bringing back home to our people.
You mentioned the word surplus. We in the United States don't know the meaning of that word, so afterwards maybe you could stay back with us. And you campaigned on a platform of attacking corruption. Give us a sense of just how big a problem this is.
Okay, let me give you one concrete example. We were meeting with the World Bank, I think it was yesterday. They had funded a series of road projects, and they believed that there was collusion amongst the various contractors. There were favored contractors, and they subsequently banned, memory serves me right, about 10 of these contractors from any World Bank funded project. Now, the DPWH, our Department of Public Works and Highways, in control of these projects, subsequently banned the same. But they banned them only from projects that are World Bank funded. So they were favored again for items apart from that budget. So without any investigations that exonerated them from the charges, they continued in their merry ways of making them that much favored. I'll give you another example. We had the fertilizer scam in 2004, discovered by a Commission on Audit in 2008. The project was meant to give farm inputs, be it seeds, be it fertilizers, etc., to assist all of our farmers and increase their incomes. Now, the fertilizers that were purchased were not appropriate for rice. They were exorbitantly overpriced, and at the end of the day, most of it was never delivered. So the wrong fertilizer that was charged at least 300% in most instances, overpriced, was never even actually delivered. So our ombudsman, who is tasked with investigating issues of corruption, amongst other things, by government entities, proceeded to investigate that incident 4 years after it transpired. And in the process, one of the witnesses already, a vital witness had already died. So even at this stage, no charges have been preferred amongst government officials involved in that program. And I think it was in 2005 that they had a repeat of this program and the scam nature of it, and perhaps in a slightly lower category. So this is, and it goes up and down, the chains of government. And that's precisely what we're trying to fight at this point in time. Now, that fills us also with a sense of urgency, because our judicial system also needs to be really reformed. We have, on average, about a 14% conviction rate compared to your 80% here, compared to 95% in Japan. When it comes to cases involving drugs, it becomes even a worse situation, 1% of conviction. So there are a lot of criminals in our country who are not convinced, no, that they will ever see a day in jail. So we are working tremendously on that. The knowledge base was done in 2000, and in 2010 we have already taken steps, finally, to start addressing that problem.
In earlier governments, not your own, corruption ran all the way to the level of ministers, and presumably those governments were were making attempts to limit corruption. What is your sense of what went wrong in the early attempts, and what can you do here that's more rigorous than what's been done before?
Well, first of all, the administration that we succeeded had a question mandate. The question mandate necessitated it favoring a lot of what they perceived as institutions that supported their continued stay in power. So you see it in the Maguindanao massacre, you see it in the delayed investigations of the ministers involved in the fertilizer scam. Bottom line is, any decision that the previous administration had to do always had political considerations. Okay, so in our case, we don't have to rely on these support pillars. We have the people that actually mounted our campaign, came up with all the paraphernalia, became our watchers and inspectors during the whole process of elections, and who constantly are there reminding us of our functions as our main support pillar. So conscious of that, conscious of the fact that we have 6 years in which to effect all of the necessary changes, we feel that we are not constrained by the same political realities of a person running for re-election. We are not constrained by owing just a few selected individuals the logistics for mounting the campaign. So we have, therefore, that freedom to try and please most, if not all, of the Filipinos in terms of delivering our promises for good governance. That frees us from all the usual obligations that empowers us in turn to really go after and go after all of these people who have really done so much harm for our countrymen, and really fulfill our promises to those that aspired and joined us in this dream of really transforming our society.
Let me move to a different topic. It's hard to have a meeting at the Council on Foreign Relations without having the subject of the rise of China and the relative decline of the United States come up. How do you see China changing in its relations with the Philippines? How present is it? How significant is it?
Well, in terms of what we call the Greater China, with Taiwan, Hong Kong, and the People's Republic, the mainland, they are already at par in terms of trade, I understand, with the United States.
So they will be your #1 trading partner within a matter of a few years?
If things go the same way as it has been. But they have engaged us in really being very friendly. When I was a kid, and whenever you think of mainland China and its leaders, they seem to be aloof, that much distant, that unattainable. But their embassy and their ambassador has really been quite effective in doing away with that imagery. Again, let me reiterate that it seems that they are really interested in forging very good relations with us, and that goes hand in hand also with our philosophy. They are, of course, a major superpower. We don't even have a single fighter jet in our Air Force. Fighter as a warplane. We have trainers for it. We are subscribing to the theory that if there is prosperity for everybody, it will be in everybody's interest to actually continue the status quo, rather than have flashpoints that will lead to belligerency and possible altercations that we have no hope of winning.
So is it fair to say that in conversations with your fellow ASEAN leaders, there's not a particular concern about the way China is evolving?
I've only had one conversation with my ASEAN counterparts. I'm having a series of them tomorrow. And I guess unspoken is that, there is a brother in the region, but he happens to be the biggest brother on the block. And we have competing interests in the Spratly Island groups. One has to, hopefully we don't have to hear the phrase South China Sea with reference to it being their sea. So far we have not had manifestations that they intend to push us around. But in case that happens, we are I think ASEAN has demonstrated that we will stand as a bloc